Well, welcome one and all to Bike Racing Without Mercy in the beautiful island of Ibiza. I'm here with Boris from Velo Club Ibiza, and we're in the iconic little village of Cala D'Hort, and behind me is the mystical and magnetic, some say not, Island of Es Vedra. Beautiful, isn't it? Anyway, coming out of Cala D'Hort here is a proper steep and nasty climb, one for the puncheurs. I'm going to hit a little bit of VO2 max training, and throughout the video we're going to show you what I've been doing in Ibiza, but also what I've been doing in terms of the training ahead of the Haute Route Dolomites. Boris, let's hit it.
Let's go.
Cheers. Island of Es Vedra, give me some mystical powers. Es Vedra was once inhabited by a friar, and after him a few goats. Today it's uninhabited, but it is a mesmerising chunk of geology rising 413 metres out of the turquoise med. It's the perfect place for a cyclist to create, what else? A Strava segment.
Let's see if we get here, Boris. It's 2.3 kilometers climbing.
Aided by a sublime and otherworldly launch pad, my pilgrimage to the cove of Cala D'Hort was to summon up some divine inspiration to get my mountain goat on and average over 300 watts for 8 to 9 minutes, the first time since the accident. From my UK training, I felt that this was once again viable, but it would require a little bit of mental fortitude. As Boris said, it's 2.3 kilometres and it averages 8.8%. But you can see here from the profile there's a very steep 300 metres coming out of the cove of Cala D'Hort. So one for a positive split and a hard but controlled punch out of the bay, in the saddle for the first 150 metres and then engage the standing turbo for the second. Then fettle back down the power to threshold and build for the second steep section. In terms of the UK training, as I showed in the last video, I've held my hand in a bit on the sweet spot, but have been much more focused on building back in the intensity. I always respond well to the intensity. I've also continued to eat a little bit more protein and have been consistent in the gym, building back up my deadlift. Therefore, my body has been recompositioning nicely, a similar weight, but with a bit more muscle added. And most importantly, I've been feeling a little bit more energised, notwithstanding work continues to be proper busy. In respect of building the VO2 max intensity, I've been using either Zwift's Gorby 5x5 very horrible minutes, or Zwift's tiny races each week. And then for upper threshold, as you'll see, there's been plenty of 2x20 minutes, usually outdoors. And the progression, well, it's been steady and welcome. And the bell tolls to commence the final block of training ahead of a family holiday and in the Haute Route Dolomites. Last weekend and a Monday, Tuesday, Jane and I and some friends had a lovely break in the southern Italian town of Lecce. I'd highly recommend it. And then since getting back on the Tuesday night, on the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I found it quite difficult to get back into the training. However, a live stream and 3 of the 4 tiny races helped me build some VO2 max gains. I garnished it with a final race, roughly around threshold with a few surges, and then backed it up this morning, yes, on the old faithful, the Redbourne St Albans TT course for some big blocks of power. 2 times 20 minutes at around about 270 watts, that's decent for me. And then a 30-minute block with tempo, building into about 15-16 minutes of tempo with VO2 max surges. A good training overall. And you can see here on the power meter, just over 2 hours, 35.5 kilometers an hour. Average power was really good, 230 watts, normalized 240. Left-right balance, 50-50. Anyway, a little bit of rest because next week is a max effort work week for me, so I'll only be able to do some short trainings on the bike. But looking next weekend on a Saturday to get back down to Porlock to see if I can improve on my power and times on the toll road and Porlock Hill. Fingers crossed. Well, I'm back in Porlock for the 3rd time in about 6 weeks for the climbing games, this time with the Villiers and a 34 on the rear. And I can report, it certainly makes a difference on the hill. Max effort on the hill, about 285 watts for just under 90 minutes. That's super good for me. It was proper emotional. But the 34 just enabled me to fettle the power a little bit better. And I have 4 ascents of the toll, just getting used to seated power and nice control, breathing, all that kind of stuff. 1 max effort, about 272 watts. Big headwind at the top. A couple of tempo efforts or low threshold, 245 and 250 odd. And then a final 260 watt one. Proper half day, 2,000 meters of climbing in just under 3 hours. That's ambitious.
Turn him on his face.
Well, ahead of the family holiday in Ibiza and then embarking on the Haute Route Dolomites, I've literally just completed Zwift's short FTP test in order to provide both a test and a fitness benchmark to see where my fitness lies after the last 6-week training block ahead of the Haute Route Dolomites itself. Now, in terms of the power source, I've used exactly the same power source as I'm going to use for the Haute Route. I had a Vivero Asiomas, just for the consistency. And in terms of the test, I did pretty well. You need the 5-minute effort in order to drain a little bit of your aerobic and anaerobic energy sources ahead of the 20-minute test itself, so as not to flatter your 20-minute power and hopefully to set the correct FTP. I exceeded the prescribed power for the 5-minute effort. I averaged 314 watts overall, and that's proper good power for me, and therefore the 20-minute effort is absolutely my best with suitably drained legs. 20 minutes itself, you can see here a nice negative split, averaged 281 watts with a cadence of about 86. I was proper struggling for that towards the end, but happy overall, and Zwift has bestowed upon me an FTP of 267 watts. This is roughly what I kind of expect based on the fact that my repeatable 20-minute power outdoors on the flat or on the climb is in and around the 270 watt range. And of course, Zwift uses 95% of the 281 watts in order to calculate the FTP of 267. And I found that personally, whether it's in the lab to calculate the exact anaerobic threshold, i.e. the point at which the lactate is only just being cleared from the blood and I'm working fully aerobically at my maximum threshold power, typically my true anaerobic threshold or FTP lies a little bit below that from the 20-minute test with the 95% of the maximum 20-minute power. Typically it's around 92% of that maximum 20-minute power, and I find that also outdoors, whether it's on the climb or on the flat, over about 40 to 50 minutes with elevated heart rate and elevated breathing, I can typically sustain something like 90 to 92% of my 20-minute power. So I'm going to mark my true FTP, my anaerobic threshold, at around about 260 watts. And you can see there, left-right balance throughout the entirety of the test, 50-50. Hopefully that's a good omen for the Haute Route Dolomites. For the aficionados of suffering, which is very much a first world problem or indeed sensation in the cycling community, please do settle in and enjoy the final 80 seconds of the effort, ranging from exquisite purgatory in the saddle into a final standing mash for cash lunge for the KOM line at the end. Well, that was my best power in ages. 8 minutes, just over 8 minutes, at 312 watts. Boris, you paced it perfectly.
In the next video, we'll show you my kind of Ibizan clubbing, courtesy of Boris from Velo Club Ibiza, including this jaw-droppingly beautiful climb with perpendicular gradients.